I love it when things don't go right. Not that I want things to go wrong, or I'm intentionally making things not go right. But like when something doesn't go right, there's so much of an opportunity to like learn and grow from that. Could it be like a conflict with a friend? It could be something happened in a sports game. It could be, business or financial. It could be, there's so many different things. But when it doesn't go right, that's where you learn. That's where you grow. That's where you like become better as a human being and better as a business person and better as a partner. It's like, that's where you grow. You have to make mistakes. And if you're not going out there, to your point at the very beginning, if you're not like going out into the world and like risking things by avoiding stress and by trying to just make things easy for yourself, then you're not going to grow. You're not going to have an opportunity to learn who you actually are. You're just going to be stagnant. It's going to be boring.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Kronos Group podcast. I am your host, Jerry Brazee, and I have with me today Helen Malinowski. She is the founder of Keros Counseling and the Somatic Integration Institute. I'm really excited to talk to her because I'm going to be honest. This is not my world. I am not a therapist. I don't believe, though, that every hard thing in life should be labeled as damage. And so things like stress and exhaustion and pressure and fear and anxiety, pain, for me, those are, in my experience, those are all things that are part of being alive. And I think that people, as I preach, have dealt with far worse for most of human history than what we deal with today, at a level that's unimaginable to us. But somehow modern society has convinced itself that discomfort means something is wrong. So I'm interested, though, in what happens when the body carries that pressure for years. And I that's what I'm really interested to hear Helen's take on this, because as everyone knows that listens to my podcast, I have lived through poverty and violence, unimaginable amounts of stress and pain and health issues and 25-year opioids addiction. And I've seen how people respond very differently to hardship. So today I want to have this conversation, maybe not necessarily about avoiding stress, but we'll see where it goes. And certainly not about turning struggle into an excuse, which I think I see happens all the time, but about understanding where normal human hardship ends and the breakdown begins. And I think that's different from everybody else. So how can people build strength and keep going without necessarily destroying themselves? Might be the ultimate question. So with that said, Helen, I appreciate you coming on and I look forward to the conversation.
Jerry, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. That's a great introduction. I'm really excited to be here. For people listening, if you haven't popped on to give Jerry a 5-star review, you probably should, because that's how like people like me find you and get to hear all of the great information that you're sharing. So glad to be here.
Excellent. Fantastic. Let's just start with a simple question, and that is somatic. Explain to us Somatic Integration Institute. You tell us what that is, but more importantly, somatic therapy.
Sure. So somatic, it simply refers to the body. It's actually quite, I believe it's a very old model that is coming back into practice in a lot of ways. We've disconnected from our bodies as a society. But if you look back at some very traditional models of healing, they're very integrated in the body. So soma is the body, and connecting, building that inner awareness of what is showing up, being able to be present with that inner awareness and that experience of what's happening internally, and in a way that allows you to work through whatever's rising to the surface. I do think that we have become very detached as a society from what our physiology is telling us. We just continue to go, and oftentimes don't listen until something slams the brakes on for us. So the somatic therapy is about really connecting with that, using it as a way to integrate your experiences, to heal things that need to be healed rather than just ignoring them. You mentioned avoiding stress. Maybe we're going to talk about that. Maybe we're not. And I think that the reality is we can't avoid stress. So what do we do with it? Do we?
And that's interesting right there. And that's a good jump off point. Is I think that people believe. I think that social media generally teaches that we should all endeavor to avoid stress. I come from the other side 100%. So I've keyed into this for years, which is that's foolishness as far as I'm concerned. I think that stress is a part of life, and spending all of your time trying to avoid stress is the unhealthy part of that. Not saying that a lot of stress necessarily is healthy, but the avoidance of it probably is equally as bad.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a parent. I've got young kids, and I think about what parenting has become lately. And I look at my own children, and I feel like there's so much of an effort to make life easy for them, because it's easier for us as parents to have children who aren't upset or hurt or whatever it might be that's showing up. And that's the opposite of what our kids need. Our kids need a balance of difficult experiences and support in order to develop resilience and to be resourceful and to figure out how to actually cope in life. And I think it's the same for us as adults. We need to challenge ourselves. We need to face the things that we need to face, but we need to also do it within the context of understanding what do we need to be successful in those endeavors.
I heard just a couple of weeks ago, I eat out at restaurants all of the time, and I had heard this somebody say on a podcast, and it struck with me. It stayed with me, which is that people, adults, need to learn to be alone and be quiet. We are inundated with information, to your point, all of the time, and I see this. I mean, I raised 3 kids pre-internet, pre iPod day, or video watching devices and smartphones and things of that nature. And I can't go to a restaurant, and I mean, I have 3 fantastic kids, 2 men, 2 boys in the Army. My daughter, I have dinner with 4 or 5 times a week. I see my children all of the time. I've done very well as far as I'm concerned. They're the pride of my life. And when I see kids on devices at restaurants, the parents are sitting there talking. Even worse so is when all of the kids and all of the parents are on devices, right? But so often it'll be the little kids are watching movies, eating with their heads down, like this, and there's no interaction, there's no responsibility, there's no learning to sit up straight, there's no learning to have your hand in your lap and eat your food and behave like a human being. And if you don't behave like a human being, then we're just going to get up and leave because it's my job to teach you children how to behave in public. There's none of that. And then when you snatch the device away from them, it's the end of the earth.
Exactly.
I mean, your thought in terms of that, and we're oversensitized almost, and it looks like we're teaching them to be oversensitized literally from the day they're born.
From the day they're born. I think, one of the things that I think of is this 24-hour cycle that we live in, that there's always information that you can access. There's always a person that you might be able to reach out to, a podcast that you can listen to, a show you can watch, music that you can access. And we're in an age of information. And so in a lot of ways, there's parts of us that say, yes, I want all this knowledge. I want all this information. I want to take it all in. But our body and our brains need a break. And especially so in our children. Boredom is like, what's the saying? Boredom is the seed of genius. I can't remember exactly what the saying is, but when you're sitting not doing anything, that's when things actually come to you. That's when ideas develop and bubble up. I have a couple different businesses. I have the Somatic Integration Institute. I have Keros, which is a group counseling facility, and then I have a nonprofit. And all of these developed out of periods of time when I actually quieted my schedule and intentionally said, I need to take a little bit of time off. I need to slow things down. And in that slowing down, these ideas just start to bubble and start to come to the surface. And we don't allow that for our children, and we often don't allow that for ourselves, and don't recognize the value and the importance of it.
I'm a terrible host, because I should have started. I'm so excited about this conversation, as I have such strong feelings about it, that I bypassed even letting the audience know your background and who you are. So if you would not, let's pretend like the last 10 minutes didn't happen. And if you could just introduce yourself and give us your background real quick, I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely. So my name is Helen. I am a licensed independent clinical social worker and a somatic experiencing practitioner. I have a group practice with about 24 clinicians. located in Massachusetts, and we have a somatic informed modality. We do much of our work is trauma focused, and it's mind-body integration, although my clinicians have a lot of other specialties. I have out of that, well, it was born of my own burnout, my own working as a clinician just by myself and overworking, seeing 30, 35, 38 clients a week, and getting to the end of the day and the end of the week and just feeling like my mind was kind of blown, like I didn't have anything else to give to my family, and realizing that what I actually needed was community. I couldn't just be doing this all by myself. And so I built my practice from that place of what do I need to be sustained and not give up on this field. And from that, I realized many clinicians need this. Many clinicians need strategies. We're not taught how to take care of ourselves in graduate school. And a lot of us aren't taught how to take care of ourselves in our own childhood, right? So in order to continue to work to support others and to help others heal from the things that they might be going through in their lives, we need to be able, it's like that put on your own oxygen mask, right? Kind of idea. So we need to be able to do that. And so from that came the Somatic Integration Institute. And that's an organization that it's really coaching and training and education, but it's supporting clinicians, coaches, practitioners who are looking for a way to continue doing the work that they love and to continue to feel fulfilled in the work that they love and be successful in the work that they love. So we offer trainings, we offer restorative workshops, we offer coaching, one-on-one and group coaching, and it's been really rewarding to see people kind of come back from the brink, not decide I'm not, come back from this place of saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I'd rather not be a clinician. I'd rather, stock shelves at Walmart. I heard someone say that. I'd rather stock shelves at Walmart. The pressure, there's just no pressure in that. And I was like, that's crazy. Like you've gone to school for all of these years. You've worked all of these years. You have all of this knowledge, all of this experience, and you're going to take that away from the world. Let's figure out a different way. So it's been really rewarding to figure out how do you keep people doing the work that they're passionate about and that's meaningful and in a sustainable way.
Before we get back to the episode, let me ask you something. Are you tired of being told that ambition is toxic? How about masculinity is a problem? And the answer to every struggle is that you should lower your standards. Well, I am. And that is why I built the Kronos Forge. It's a free community for men who want to get more out of themselves, quite frankly. You want to lose weight, build a business, get a promotion, save your marriage, find a relationship, become a better father or an employee, a better friend, a better businessman. How about get your money right? Or maybe just get around men who refuse to apologize for wanting more, something we have done since the dawn of time. If who I am, if what I have built, how I think, and the way that I see the world resonates with you, then you need to get in this room. Nobody is coming to save us, and that is fine with us. Go to thekronosgroup.org/forge or click the link in the show notes. Come check us out. When they come in with that burnout, is the expectation on the other side of the therapy that they go back to doing the same things that they were doing hours-wise and career-wise, but with just a different mindset? Or are they changing what they're doing?
Yeah, we're re-engineering how they do their work. Really, like from the bottom up, we are looking at how what's the model that they're offering? How are they taking care of themselves? How many hours are they working? For example, if you're insurance based, if you're a practitioner who's insurance based, your reimbursement rate is really quite low, and that means that to be financially in a good place, you have to work a lot of hours. Maybe that's not working anymore for you. Maybe you're seeing clients with the acuity that's too high and you're not getting, paid enough per hour. And so you're seeing too many of them. And at the end of the day, we're taking in so much information. E-coaches do this too, but we're taking in so many stories that are really hard to hear of people's lives. And we need to offset that somehow. We need to either have breaks in our day, or we need to see fewer clients, or we need to have a mix of clients who are really struggling and clients who are, doing okay, but need support and someone to listen to them. So it's really re-engineering that and looking at how do we get from where we are, maybe seeing 30 clients a week to where we want to be. For example, I see about 10 clients a week right now. So I went from seeing 35 clients a week, 5 years ago and being really burnt out to seeing 10 clients a week. Now I run a business. I run 2 businesses. So I'm doing a lot of other things, but those other things fill my cup in a way that, and then my clients fill my cup. So it's this, I don't want to give up being a clinician. I don't want to let that go. I find it to be very fulfilling, but I needed to find a balance, and other people are going to have a different balance that they need to reach.
The fill my cup, define fill my cup. What do you mean by that?
Well, at the end of the day, I don't feel like, at the end of the day, I feel like I've done something meaningful and I have energy to walk in the house and take my kids to the basketball court, or, make a really good dinner. I'm not feeling like I just want to like flop down on the couch and like zone out to Netflix or something. Not that I don't watch a lot of TV anyway, but that feeling of like, I've done something that's meaningful. I've been helpful and made a difference in the world. And I still have energy for the other things that are important to me.
I've often said I'm not, I refer to myself as a caveman. And my job is, I have a family. I come from abject poverty. And the expectation that I had, living with hookers and heroin addicts as a 17-year-old on the streets, that I would be alive today, forget about married for coming up on 29 years in August, and have this great family and do all of the things that I did in business, was unimaginable to me. Not a single dime. I've owned 13 businesses, I think, 14 businesses, something like that. Almost $500 million in revenue across those businesses. Not a single one of those dollars that I have in revenue did I get from doing anything that I loved. I figured out things. Sometimes I figured out things that I couldn't make money at and lost money at it. But many times I figured out things that I could make money at. And then I took that money and I did the things that I was passionate about with that money, i.e. my family. So I think about it in terms of, Jerry, how do you stay so driven? How do you stay so passionate about your work? And I'm passionate about work because it is me leaving the cave every morning while my wife and children are asleep in a nice warm area. And I have to venture out into the world where I then hit a pterodactyl over the head and drag it back home. And if I get hurt in the process, that's fine, because that is me fulfilling who I am. And I take that back and I nurse my wounds and I watch my children and my wife eat. And I can't wait to get up the next morning and go do that all over again. And if I can join a tribe that can teach me a better way how to hunt and maybe make the hunting easier, then I'm going to do that. And so that's my approach. And so I don't know that I legitimately and sincerely ask that question about the cup, because my cup is, how much food do my children have to eat every day? And if it's not enough, then I got to work harder, or I got to look at my world differently. And if it's more than enough or enough, then I've done my job for the day and I can sleep, put my head on the pillow at night and sleep quietly.
And Jerry, we have different cups, right? But at the same time, you are passionate about what you are passionate. You have a passion for what you do, because if you didn't have a passion for what you do, regardless of the reason why you're doing it, you'd find something else to make your family's needs be met. You would. This image of the pterodactyl, I just love this. I just love this. This image of you going out and getting that pterodactyl and bringing that pterodactyl back. And if you get hurt, you get hurt. But I got to tell you, this idea of a tribe, because you're less likely to get hurt. And if you get hurt out there hunting that pterodactyl and you don't make it back to your family, then what's your family going to do? Mm-hmm. Right? So right. I agree with everything that you just said. And you need to be able to get back to your family, because that's what's driving you at the beginning of it. So you don't want to get to a place where that's a much more like concrete example. But in my example, it's I wake up one morning and I can't offer anything else to my clients. And so they stop showing up in my office and I'm not making any money and my kids aren't being fed. So it's different, But I think it's the same thing. Like we need to do those things, and we need to show up for our families, and we get a little bit hurt, but we need to get back home, and we need to figure out how do I be most successful at this in a way that I can continue to do it and continue to do it well, and hopefully continue to do it better and better and better.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think just to make sure we're there's some nuance there. Make sure that we flesh this out. The world is flush with social media, business, health, mental gurus that will tell you that you should do what you're passionate about, do what you love for a living. And my experience again is I love playing pool, and I love playing with my children, and I go to the gym. If I could figure out how to make a living doing those things, that is exactly what I would do, but I can't. And so I go do these jobs. I'm passionate about working, but what I want to be clear on for me is I'm not passionate about what I do. I'm not passionate about any of the money I've ever earned, other than it is a means to an end to then go and follow my passions. And so I think that there is this idea in the world that we have to find what we love doing. I love baking, so I'm going to open a bakery. Well, the bakery failed, and now I have to go be a dishwasher, so I'm miserable because I don't get to go do this thing that I love. And that's where I go, whoa, 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 whoa. To me, that doesn't make any sense. That's what I'm talking.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It doesn't make any sense. I can say that there are some people that have the privilege of being successful at the thing that they love, right? There are some people, and there are other people that are able to find success doing something, like you said, so that you can have other things. You can pursue the other things that you love and that you're passionate about and that are important to you. I think that if you can find the thing and you can be successful at it, like go for it 100%. But I will also tell you that doesn't mean that you're not going to burn out. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get to a place where you someday think, I don't know if I can continue to do this, because you have to have that awareness of really what is driving you, and how do I protect that drive and take care of myself so that I can continue, right? So I can continue to go out and get the pterodactyl, or I can continue to show up for my clients, or I can continue to wash dishes if that's what it is that I need to be doing, right? And not get stuck in that place where you're like, this sucks. Like, this is awful. I don't want to do this anymore. And then the spiral that can come from that mindset can be devastating. It can be absolutely devastating.
I hear that. And I appreciate that. And I am a fan of the conversation. I'm a fan of therapy. I'm a fan of people not being stuck in their own head. So I want to make that clear. When I hear something like, what happens when this happens, or you have to do this thing, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. So that for me, I think if I go into it with the expectation that something is going to happen in my life that's going to force me then to make these changes that I need to go and figure out, then what happens if those things aren't available to me, as an example, right? Well, I mean, what did we do 100 years ago? Right? What did we do 1,000 years ago when life was so much harder? So I think what I'm saying is, I think that modern society has kind of lost the plot a bit. And things like everyday life, stress and fear and exhaustion and, anxiety and sacrifice, I think all of those things are part of life. Sure, they can get out of whack. I just think that it's moved so far one direction that people, the second that their brain, that anxiety wells up in their brain, or their expectation of that, or their idea of what that might be, is probably way lower and way less than what it should be. We're much more resilient, at least that I think, and that normal human struggle is what it is to be human. So if we lower that level, I think that we're less resilient and less effective. I don't know if I got lost there.
I think I understand. I do understand. Have you heard of the book, The Comfort Crisis?
What? I'm sorry.
Comfort Crisis?
No.
Oh, you should totally look it up. I cannot think of the author off the top of my head.
Okay.
But he speaks to this so brilliantly. One of the things that you mentioned is like, what did we do 100 years ago? What did we do, 1,000 years ago? I think one of the things that has changed today, and not as an excuse, but just as something to be aware of, one of the things that has changed today is that we are, for all of the connections that we have, we're actually really isolated. We don't live in these communities. I think what would have happened 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago is you have people to talk to about it, right? Like if if something's not going the way it's supposed to be going, or you're running into roadblocks or whatever it might be, or your body's breaking down or whatever it might be, right? There was more of like, women had women to talk to and men had men to talk to. And it's not something that exists in the same way as it used to. And I think that you mentioned when you were talking earlier about, kind of going out and finding a tribe that helps you do it better. I think that's what I did. I built a practice that had a tribe, right? It had a community. And so now we're able to do it better. So I think figuring out what it is, that's missing is a piece of this. And for a lot of people, it's community. It's, having people around you.
Yeah. That is a huge missing part of the world. I think religion played a big part in that up until the last 40 or 50 years. But to your point, and for the men, and a large part of my audience is men, we start pushing back when we hear the word talk, particularly in the context of women get together and talk, right? And so I want to make sure, guys, there's how women communicate and there's how men communicate. The story I tell is the buddy whose mother died, and they're out golfing 3 or 4 months later, and as a group they're giving each other trouble, and one of the guys says, our parents are going to, and in the middle of this conversation he stops himself and he looks at his buddy whose mother had just died 3 months before, and he says, for some of us, parent. And of course all the guys just thought that was the funniest thing ever, including the guy whose mother had died. I always remember that story. That's how men communicate. That's how we deal with trauma, right? Yes. So I want to be clear. We're not talking, it's okay that we don't communicate the same way. And when we're talking about men communicating and women communicating, it's in our own way that we communicate and talk. Because I think men get really uncomfortable when we hear about talking, because talking could be wrestling on the front lawn.
Absolutely, 100%. Talking could be, it is communicating. It can be ribbing on one another. It can be going golfing. It can be going hunting. It can be, like a father and son that are outside playing catch.
Yeah.
Right. Like that kind of time is so important for both of them, in a way that I have a son and a daughter, and I look at what each needs in terms of time with a parent and times with one another. And it's just different. It's so different. But figuring out what that is, and surrounding yourself, getting out of the house, getting off the internet, doing something with people, being live in person, face to.
Stop ordering food off of apps, I tell young men, and go to the restaurant.
Go to the restaurant.
Who knows who you're going to meet? Even if you go to McDonald's, you got to interact with the person on the other side of the counter. Whatever it is, get out of the car, walk into the place. I say, you think it doesn't matter, but sitting in your room and ordering your food in is not the way that it's supposed to be. I agree with you. In fact, I would almost make that one of the most important things that society has lost. And I agree with you 100% on that. Yes. We need more of that, not less of that.
More of that and not less of that. More human interaction. It's gotten so, since COVID, when I was even reflecting on this in terms of the work that we do, like virtual therapy versus in-person therapy. It's, some people just don't want to come to the office. They live 10 minutes from where we're working, and they want to do therapy on the computer. And it's like, okay, that's an option, but it's not the best option.
Right.
Come in. Let's share energy. Let's be in the same space together. Let's go for a walk. Let's go for a walk. Let's go outside. Let's do something human.
I am much more effective. I think people are much more effective. I live in Tennessee. My businesses are in Oregon, where I grew up. And so I live through this environment I'm back there 1 week a month. I'm much more effective 1 week a month when I'm there in front of people, in front of my customers, in front of my employees, whatever it is. That goes without saying. And as somebody who grew up on buses where you're interacting with strangers all of the time and you're making friends, and I go to the gym, every day, and there's thousands of people that go to the gym, and I'm making a new friend every day and have conversations. And how was your day? I live in the South, so it's not, as opposed to where I come from in Portland, Oregon. Down here, people want to have conversations, and you can make friends, just literally overnight. It's so important, and it's such a big part of I guess, my mental therapy, if you will, to hear the stories from other people and to get feedback and to hear what their lives are like and what's going on. And as I've gotten older, I've really learned to listen as opposed to talk. When I was younger, I was thinking ahead because I'm so smart. I'm going to finish. Let me finish your conversation. Let me finish your sentence for you. And I lost out on so many good conversations with an inability to listen. But since I've learned to listen, life is fuller for me, but I can't do that this way necessarily in the same way that we can in a one-on-one. I was at a dinner last night for entrepreneurs. I got 2 texts this morning because I said to the whole table, I don't want to have a phone call, but I'll come have lunch with you. So I have 2 lunches from last night's dinner to go have now because I said I want to sit down and, whatever you're trying to sell, I'm happy to listen to, but I want to have a conversation too. Let's go have lunch.
Yeah, exactly. I
that one-to-one.
agree with you on that.
Yeah, we don't get enough of it. I grew up in chaos. I think I said that at the opening. So, and it's not dramatic. I'm not being overly dramatic. It's just my life. So, violence and poverty and stress and survival and all of those things were just stealing food as a kid was just normal to me. So I think I'm pretty resilient, but I had it built into me very young. I say I am who I am in spite of where I come from and because of where I come from. Both things are true for me. And so how does someone, though, maybe that doesn't have my background and came out the way that I do, and again, so many of my contemporaries are drug addicts and 3 times divorced and beat their children and went to prison and alcoholics and smoke cigarettes and all of those things. How do you know the difference between that resiliency, or how do you learn that resiliency? Or is it resiliency, or is it an adaptation to the dysfunction? Hey, everybody, quick break. I want to tell you about something I'm doing for the first time. I'm putting together the first Kronos Group cohort. That's 10 business owners max. And understand, this is not a course. It's a peer level work with other operators and direct access to me on a month-to-month basis. We're going to go deep on what actually moves the needle for businesses, like systems and sales and leadership and staying sane while you're building something real: fitness, health, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. This group is for you. The people who get in on this first cohort get founder pricing, and that's the trade for going first. And it won't be open long, and it's not going to stay at this price for sure. If you've been listening to this show or me and thinking you need a room like this, you probably do. 10 spots, founder special. Check it out. The link's in the show notes.
That's a really good question. I think people are so different. I mean, the research on trauma shows that you can have, 10 people go through the same situation. They've literally followed people who've been in the same, bus accident or gone through the same, and they're going to have different outcomes, right? That event, that trauma, whatever it might be, that those experiences are going to affect them differently. And a piece of what makes a huge difference is a sense of what we call self-efficacy. Did I do something that gave me a sense of control over my environment? Or did I not have that sense of control? Did I feel like that control had been taken away from me? So some people are, maybe more action oriented, just biologically, genetically, maybe more action oriented, or maybe a little bit more resilient, or there's something in their DNA or their nervous system that just allows them to have this perceived sense of, I have control over my future. I have control over the choices that I make. And when you feel like you have control over the choices that you make, and life's not just happening to you, then you're much more resilient. You're much more likely to bounce back from things or learn different ways. I don't want to do it that way. That didn't feel good for my childhood, so I'm not going to do that for my children. It's hard to know exactly where that all comes from. Who knows? You may have encountered, if you think back in your life, you may have encountered somebody at some point who gave you a sense of something could be different. And whether it changed you in that moment or just stuck with you and then showed up later.
I think making choices for your life, having that agency is what as I call it, absolutely is a life changer, a game changer. But I'll to your last point there, when I was 14 years old, you're hitting it on the head, just not quite the way I think that you're thinking about. When I was 14 years old, I got robbed in an ATM, 4 guys, and they beat me within an inch of my life, broke 2 ribs, broke my nose, rolled me under a bus stop, left me for dead, August in Portland, Oregon. I woke up an hour and a half later, roll out from underneath the bus stop, get myself on the bus. Both eyes are black, blood down my front. I have to transfer. I pass out at a transfer point. I wake back up. It's starting to get dark. Now I have to walk a mile and a half home from the second transfer point, Portland, Oregon. When I go back there, about every other time I go back there, I will go to this spot before I go over the interstate freeway. There is a square of sidewalk to this day that is now 40 plus years later. That is an oversized square. It doesn't make any sense. It's just one oversized square of sidewalk. As I stepped on that sidewalk, a voice outside of my head. Now remember, I'm beaten. So God, Buddha, Jiminy Cricket, my conscious, whatever it was. But a voice, a female voice behind me, I thought it was somebody in the apartments right there yelling at me, said to me, "Everything is your fault." And Helen was on my children's eyes. I turned. It was so clear. I can hear the voice today, but it was a human being, sounded like to me, outside of my head, behind me, said to me on my right-hand side, "Everything is your fault. If you don't take responsibility for everything that happens to you, you're going to be just like everybody else." I didn't have a counselor. I didn't have nobody at home. I don't know. I have no concept of where that came from to Jerry Brazee circa 1983, that sort of information would come to me. So to your point, I had this first epiphany. Now, it wasn't a hockey stick, right? I didn't change immediately and go about my life. But by the time everything started to come together in my late 20s, and my son was born in a different set of circumstances relative to business, kind of everything came together. And now that really made sense. And so the flip side to that agency, or the start maybe to that agency, that I tell people is that everything that happens to me is my fault. And I've had people lose hundreds of thousands of dollars on my behalf. And I looked at it and said, you deal with the problem. You don't want it to happen again and all of that. But rather than blame them, I go, what did I do to put them in a position to steal from me? What did I do that put them in a position to make a mistake that cost me that money? And the value to fixing that was always worth way more than I lost. And on a much smaller level, the value of everything being my fault means I take my agency back from everybody. Growing up in institutional generational poverty the way I did, to your point, everybody ends up relatively the same. I am the outlier. There's different reasons for that. People don't want to see you get out. But that epiphany, broken nose and ribs and all of that epiphany changed my life, because I take responsibility for everything. So I don't get emotional about people jumping up and down and getting all pissed off and screwing things up and messing up my world or screwing up my day or costing me time or effort or energy or money or any of those things. It doesn't affect me because it's my fault.
Yeah, there's so much genius in that, and just that awareness. If you can take accountability, I talk about this quite often with my clients, with my kids. Like, I love it when things don't go right. Not that I want things to go wrong, or I'm intentionally making things not go right, but like when something doesn't go right, there's so much of an opportunity to like learn and grow from that. Could it be like a conflict with a friend? It could be, something happened in a sports game. It could be, business for financial. It could be, there's so many different things. But when it doesn't go right, that's where you learn. That's where you grow. That's where you like become better as a human being, and better as a business person, and better as a partner. It's like, that's where you grow. You have to make mistakes. And if you're not going out there, to your point at the very beginning, if you're not like going out into the world and like risking things by avoiding stress and by trying to just make things easy for yourself, then you're not going to grow. You're not going to have an opportunity to learn who you actually are. You're just going to be like, it's going to be stagnant. It's going to be boring. It's going to be, you're going to feel stress anyway, because if you're not stressed about, the bear chasing you through the woods, then you're going to be stressed about something. And if there's nothing, then you're going to find something to stress about. We're human beings. Like, we're going to find something. And if so maybe I'm stressed about like, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to get paper cuts because I'm spending too much time at my desk. Like,
yeah. I agree. How do you then, if there's a baseline, how, again, back to culture, where we have created this culture that everything that's hard is trauma, right? I hear the word trauma all the time, and I think, man, it's the world today. We need better definitions. We need more words, right? Because everything is a trauma. And so if everything is a trauma, how do you separate that real trauma from just life's normal pain and pressure and struggle, what it is to be a human being? Because inherent in being a human is all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I view trauma as something that's actually physiological. It's something that's changed. It's an event that's at some level changed you physiologically, internally at a nervous system level. And because there's been some impact internally, like you can also reverse that. You can also move back from that.
Mm-hmm.
And not have that event. The event doesn't need to be, traumatic anymore. It doesn't need to be considered a trauma. There's a lot of things that are stressful in life. There's a lot of things that are difficult in life. There's a lot of things that cause us unease and discomfort and may like persist in our minds. We may have a hard time getting past them, but trauma is physiological. Trauma is something that's actually happened. It's actually caused a change internally. So it's not all of these little traumas. I mean, I'm agreeing with you that there's too much. It's a word that's thrown around way, way, way too much. And it dilutes the meaning of it. It dilutes, when you have like a veteran that hears an engine backfire and leaps, dives under a table. That's a physiological fight or flight response that's changed in their nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
which is really different than someone saying something to me that is upsetting.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I, my kids love making fun of me, and it's been an absolute. It's just one of the best things that could have ever happened to me, even though it was hard earned on my side. Is I can't sit. I have to sit in a very specific spot in a restaurant. My back has to be I have to be facing the door that I came into. I can tell you where all the exits are. I mean, because I've been in 100 fights. I've been stabbed. I've been shot at. I've been beaten within an inch of my life. So I'm 57 years old. I live in Tony, Franklin, Tennessee, right? I mean, I have nothing to worry about. But to this day, if I don't, my kids will make fun of me because halfway through the meal, I will literally be contorted, right? I'm blind in my right eye. And so, and I'll be like this so I can kind of see the door, and I'm not even aware I do it. And they give me a bad time about it. So it's almost become a joke. And they'll, Dad, just sit over here. And then, I'll acquiesce and I'll go sit over there, and life will be much better. But I feel like a coiled spring if I can't see the door that I came in and I can't see the exits. And so to your point, I think about that and I go, I can't do anything about it. And even if I ignore it, I will subconsciously move myself in my chair so that my body's going, no, I'll take care of this while you're having your conversation. My mind, I should say, is doing something separate.
So that's where the interesting thing is as a somatic therapist. That I find interesting because there are things like if that was a change that was created internally for you because of your experiences in life, that's something that can be unwound, and it doesn't require talk therapy. It doesn't. That's the beauty of somatic therapy is it doesn't require. We don't have to dig into the details, right? We don't have to like talk about all of the different experiences that you've had. Like it's really like what am I noticing in my body, and how can I be with it in a way that allows some kind of movement through that fight or flight response, and reminds me that I actually am here. I'm alive. There isn't, I have the door behind me. I can, and I have a window behind me. And I know there's a lot of people that couldn't sit like this because of their experiences.
My door's right there.
Your door's right there, right?
My office is set up, so my door's right there.
You can see it. So working, I can see mine in my camera, but you can work through, through somatic practices, ways to, integrate those experiences and now be back in the present moment and be, like you said, you're in wherever you are in Tennessee, like you don't have to worry about these things, but your body doesn't know that because your body's not, hasn't caught up necessarily like with where your mind is. So the benefit of somatic therapy is you can get there without having to dig through all the talk and the mess and it's a very different way of working with your past.
Is that like somatic therapy again from the body? Is that like, oh no, I'm blanking. EFT, the
EMDR,
tapping, the tapping,
EMDR.
EMDR. Is that what it is?
Well, those,
Yeah. Is
those are
that
both somatic therapies. They're both somatic types. They're types of somatic therapies because they are, they're using, the tapping, which I think is this one. It uses acupressure points to calm the body down so you can like reintegrate your belief systems. And EMDR is you have to go into more of the story in EMDR, but you're not talking about it. You're processing it internally with someone who's kind of guiding you through the processing, but you're not exactly talking about it. And then somatic experiencing is another modality where there's, interoceptive guidance, following, tracking what's happening internally and finding like movement to it. So we're not, stuck in that moment, but we're finding like a little bit of movement through it.
What part is a great segue right here, so we'll take it. What part, I was healthy most of my life, give or take. And then when I was 40 years old, apparently I was born in my DNA with a thing that caused a 40% block in my left ventricle out of nowhere. Thank God we caught it. It would have killed me. So then I was on drugs. I broke my back when I was 19 years old. So I had a 25-year opioid addiction. It all kind of came to a head in November 21st of 21. I was 310 pounds. I was down 4 pints of blood, laying in a hospital, dying here in Williamson County, Tennessee. And I said to myself, I was, like I said, 310 pounds. And I said to myself, I'm not going out like this. I have unborn grandchildren. I did not work. How in the hell did I end up at this point? I had been healthy again, been active, working out, things like that, except those previous 10 years. And so for me, I turned my own health around January 2nd of 2022. I lost 100 pounds in 8.5 months, and I've done half marathons and at the gym, physical action and walking and lifting, and my diet is super tight and I'm super disciplined, and I quit opioids cold turkey and, started about rebuilding my body mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Everything went to 12. Everything was at 2. So for me, I'm a big proponent of that physical discipline, and that physical discipline includes what you eat for me, as well as, what you're physically out there and doing. From a somatic perspective, I would assume that, but you're the expert. I'm making this assumption that is a kind of somatic therapy because we're working on the body. Or what part does physical discipline play for, on the discipline for the mind and the nervous system to help regulate?
It's interesting. I also am a regular at the gym, and I do run, quite, a couple times a week. And my own journey, like my running, was a big part of my own journey. It was something that became, for a period of time, almost like obsessive, to the point where it wasn't good for my body anymore, but it was doing something for me, right? It was an outlet. It was a place where I could go, where my mind could get cleared, and I needed it. Really, I needed it. What I didn't realize was that I was doing it and I was disconnecting from my body. Right. So I had this outlet, and I was, but I was also really disconnected from my body. So the somatic work allowed me to like integrate awareness of, and I still run and I still go to the gym. It allowed me to integrate and like bring some awareness into my body. With that awareness, and you might be doing this organically, right? I didn't do it organically. I sort of had to be like walked through the process. But with that awareness, I can work through things as they come up. If something's bothering me, if I'm angry, if I'm upset with somebody, if I'm, dealing with something that's challenging in my business, and I'm at the gym, and I have there's great boot camp place that I go to, and we're doing, like that, like the bags or like the pushing the sled or something. And it's like I'm working through all that stuff while my body's moving, in a way that I couldn't. Some people can do it sitting still, but in a way that I couldn't sitting still. And you need to nourish your body in order to have that level of activity, right? You need to have the right kind of stuff in your body. But I really think it's not just going through the motions, Jerry. It's feeling it. It is feeling your muscles. If you're doing a boxing workout, for example, it's like feeling every muscle in your back and your shoulder, your bicep, like when your hand hits. It's really like not dissociating from the experience, but being really in it that makes the difference.
I said to my son, he went and trained with me over the weekend, and I said to him that I have to hate the weight. And I don't mean hate being there. I have to hate it so I can destroy it. I have to, I have to, I have to hate the muscle. This is my interpretation. I may be using the wrong word, but for in my head, an isolation exercise means that this muscle, I'm going to crush this muscle. But I'm aware that everything that happens in life is coming at me. And so a way that I can diffuse so much of that is that I'm present in that moment, and it's just me and that weight. It's just me and that muscle. It's just me and that mile. It's just me in the summer heat here in Tennessee, where I go out for an hour and do 4 miles every day in the sunshine largely. And when it's hot, I'll go at 4 o'clock in the afternoon if I can, because that's when it's the most difficult, because I need to go work that out in the most difficult environment that I can. So if I am aggressive towards these things, I find that I come out the other side feeling better than I did walking in mentally and physically.
Yeah. And what's the point of a workout if you're not giving it 110%? You're just
They
wasting
need
your
to hang
time.
that at the gym though, because there's 80% of the people. I just have to, Helen, I have to keep my head down. I can't look, because I go, how do you just sit there on your phone, moving a weight while you're on there? And I go, no, you need to hate that. No, just mind your business, Jerry. Don't be that guy. Just do your own thing, right? Because so many of them are there passing time, it seems like.
Yeah. And for me, I'm thinking oftentimes it's, I am thinking about things like, this is making me stronger. And when I'm physically stronger, I'm mentally stronger, and I'm emotionally stronger, and I'm spiritually stronger. I think of balance is a good example, right? I think if you can think of it as like a three-legged stool, you have like your emotional balance, your physical balance, and your like cognitive balance. And if any one of those is off, if you're not, if you're unsteady physically, if you're unsteady emotionally, or you're unsteady like in your mind, that stool is not going to be balanced. But at the same time, they all help each other. They all help each other.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Who is your perfect customer? Who are you looking for?
I'm looking for someone who is it's a great question. I'm looking for someone who is wanting to create a business, a practice. Most of my customers are clinicians and coaches, but they're trying to create something, and they're finding that the traditional rules of business, like they're running into roadblocks, kind of hurdles with the traditional like coaching methods or the traditional models of building a business. An example often, the one I come across often is like the marketing piece of things. A lot of people, an entrepreneur, at least particularly in my field, an entrepreneur, they come up with this great idea. I'm going to do this practice. I'm going to offer this thing. I'm really, really good at it, but I have to sell myself. And when it comes, then they can't open their mouth. Nothing comes out. They don't know what to write. They can't get online. They're stuck, right? And they've got maybe a coach saying, but you need to you need to have a presence on 3 different platforms, and you need to be posting this many times a week, and they just can't do it. They just can't get over that hurdle. That's my ideal client. That's my ideal customer, because it's something that's internal. It's something beyond what your mind is telling you to do. It's something that is actually stopping you from taking action. And that's like an internal physiological stuckness that we work through.
Yeah, I love that. I recognize that. I see that all of the time. I see that in my own life. So I agree with you 100% on that. Okay, as we go out, I like to do a little speed round at the end. So I'm going to ask you 4 or 5 questions. As quick, just simple, 2, 3, 4 words. Don't think too much about it. This is more about reaction than it is necessarily what the answer is. So let's try this out. First question is stress always bad?
No, absolutely not.
Can comfort make people weaker?
Yes.
What's more dangerous, trauma or victimhood?
Victimhood.
Can discipline heal people?
Discipline is a stepping stone in the healing process. It's necessary.
What's more important, therapy or responsibility?
Well, you have to have responsibility before you can actually get anything out of therapy.
I like that. Perfect. Tell us, Helen, you have a book. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I have a book coming out. It's called Coming Back to Yourself. It is strategies for building a sustainable practice. And like I said earlier, it's not your traditional business development model. It's going to get you past all of those little hurdles, whether it's hurdles around building your team, marketing, facing your finances. So it'll be coming out on Amazon towards the end of the summer, I believe. And if you want to get some early, tidbits of it, you can go to somaticintegrationinstitute.org/coming back and get on my, list, and I'll send you updates and tidbits and, things that can kind of get you moving in the process before the book even comes out.
I love it. How do they get a hold of you?
I'm on Instagram at Somatic Informed Therapies, and I am online at the somaticintegrationinstitute.org.
And when we put this out, everyone, we will make sure that this is in the show notes. I hope that the listeners here, and Helen, I appreciate your perspective. I like the idea overall of more conversation. And so I hope that the listener understands that there is a place for all of these things. I think that on one side, and I'm probably come from this side, there's this idea that this isn't anything that you need, particularly from men. I think it's, what is it, like 80% of therapy is women and 20% is men. So I would not have a problem with that number moving more towards the middle. I want men in particular to hear that it's not what we think it is, right? And as you and I went back, and I appreciate you putting up with me, and I pushed back a little bit, I think we had a great conversation about it. But I want men in particular to understand that it's not this cookie cutter, what we see on TV, what social media tells us, what the different therapies is, and we got to go in there and we have to cry on a couch, that there is other ways of doing this. And that's, social media and culture generally, that's how it portrays it. And so you're not going to get men in there. But to the extent that there is value in there, and I believe that it is, particularly that's why the somatic side of it was so interesting to me. I hope this conversation kind of took the pressure off a little bit for some of the guys out there that might be listening, that this might be an outlet for them that they would be more comfortable with, as opposed to sitting on that couch.
I would love that. This is a conversation my husband and I actually have quite often. I'm like, you could try it. He's like, I don't want to try it. I'm like, what I do. It's not that it's not
Right.
that bad.
Yes.
But I don't think I think that you have to find the right therapist, and you have to be really clear about what you want and what you don't want. And yeah.
Very good. Helen, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. It was great talking to you.